Coming up on the 1 minute mark until airtime on the LSU Sports Radio Network. Stand by for your 1 minute mark. Coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark 1 minute till airtime on the LSU Sports Radio Network. Coming up, stations, your countdown until airtime will be your 30-second mark when the network will go silent. Stand by for your final 30-second mark until airtime. Coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark 30 seconds until airtime on the LSU Sports Radio Network.
It's game week for LSU Fighting Tiger football. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. The Tigers go on the road in the SEC. This Saturday, it's LSU versus the Ole Miss Rebels in Oxford.
There's no perfection out there, but there was definitely some progress. So we made the progress that we were looking for. Now we got to build on that going into Ole Miss on the road against a very good football team.
Coming up, head coach Brian Kelly sets the tone for the Tigers this week and updates all things LSU football. But first, with a preview of this week's matchup from inside the Capital One studio at legendary Tiger Stadium, here are former Tiger Gordy Rush and the voice of your Fighting Tigers, Chris Blair.
Once again, good Monday morning, Tiger fans. Welcome into the Brian Kelly Press Conference. We head back into SEC play, and the Tigers, after finishing up a very successful three-game homestand, will head out on the road to take on the Ole Miss Rebels. Welcome in. Gordy Rush, Chris Blair with you here in the Capital One studio. And, Gordy, we'll talk about Ole Miss and LSU. It's that classic SEC matchup, obviously, that goes back years and years, the 111th meeting coming up between the Rebs and the Tigers. But we'll start with LSU. As I said, really a great three-game homestand. They find themselves now 4-0 on the season. And it was a get-right game. I mean, that's kind of the theme we had last week. We talked about it. Coach Kelly talked about it. He didn't know. He kept saying, hey, I don't know how this game's going to go. So we're preparing for it regardless of who the opponent is. But as it turned out, it went exactly according to script for the most part. A couple of injuries, which we'll talk about. But my goodness, the offense did get on track. It was just what the doctor said they needed to do, and they did.
And how about Garrett Nussmeier? I thought he had an outstanding game. Garrett, in the press conference, I think Monday or Tuesday earlier in the week, Coach Kelly talked about that he had been dealing with a torso injury. There was some question out there in the media whether or not he was even going to play, and indeed he played, and he needed to because it felt like he got in rhythm. He was able to stretch the football field with some deep passes. He was very accurate in some intermediate stuff. He ran the football a couple of times, and you could see he's getting as close to 100% health as we've seen him this season. So for number 18, it was a huge game for him.
Yeah, 25 for 31, 273 yards. He'd throw for 3 touchdowns. Exciting to see him rush for a touchdown there. Also had his longest career run, which he was pretty fired up about, and let the crowd know that almost like, Gladiator. Are you not entertained after the big run? Distributed the ball well. And I guess the thing that stands out to me is, number one, you see him running, which says he must feel pretty good. But as you said, I mean, a couple of those throws, were right on the money. A couple when he was sprinting out, throwing against his body, still put it right between the numbers. He looked like the Garrett Nussmeier that last year led this offense to over 5,600 yards and 47 touchdowns. And that's what you need. And Coach Kelly said it. He said, I'm not shying away from the fact that we're going to have to put more points on the board. And we'll talk about it in a little bit, but you're certainly going to have to, you would think, on paper against this Ole Miss team. Running the football. We saw Juwan Johnson kind of lead things, and you and I talked about it during the broadcast. You know, they're utilizing the screen game as an extension of the run game. We've seen that a lot, trying to open up the middle of the field. We've seen, enough running, not where they want it to be, but maybe just enough. But Juwan Johnson and Xavier Thomas, when they enter into the run game, they're not just fast. They don't just have great cuts. We saw Juwan Johnson wearing number 8, lay a couple of hits and be physical. And I think that's what kind of excited me the most.
Well, they both can run physical, and what excites me is that they can do so many things when they're on the football field. They both can line up as running backs. They both can line up as wide receivers. We know that Thomas can go way down the field and catch a pass. He can also, take a screen. He can take a reverse. He's so versatile that as a defensive coordinator, it's a lot to prepare for when you have to deal with 8 and 0, not to mention Anderson and Brown and how capable they are to take a handoff at any time. It's really tough to scheme and game plan for this LSU offense.
And tip of the cap also to Bauer Sharp, again, having to fill in without the option of Trey'Dez Green, which is great. We saw him warming up with the team, wasn't able to go. But we'll maybe get a little update here on what the plan is for Trey'Dez this week. But Bauer Sharp, not only out there blocking, trying to help the run game, but a couple of big catches and obviously found the end zone, his first touchdown as a Tiger. I want to talk real quick about Garrett, too. This shouldn't go unnoticed. He now is the LSU leader with career games with 25-plus completions, and that ellipses the great Joe Burrow. So congratulations to Garrett there. That's pretty good company to be in. Defensively, again, you check all the boxes. I mean, obviously, Southeastern Louisiana able to put 10 points on the board, and every defense, every game wants to throw the shutout. But when the ones were out there, it was a pretty much dominating performance. The Lions never crossed the 50 there in the first half. I think had a total of 30 yards. The defense did once again what we've seen this defense do in 4 straight weeks.
Look, they were mentally sharp, and that's what you worry about in a game like last Saturday night against Southeastern. After the big emotional game against Florida, you know you're going to win that game. You still have to play at the standard, at a high level, the way that the coach likes to say it. And, the hard thing about Southeastern, they gave you a lot of different looks. I mean, this is a really creative offense. You had a quarterback that was a pocket passer and was camp, and then Lowe was an athletic quarterback. So you got 2 different guys. And the good thing about that is you're going to see all of it next week against Ole Miss, because nobody's more creative than Lane Kiffin.
It'll be LSU and Ole Miss in Oxford coming up. Of course, last year's game here in Baton Rouge was an absolute thriller. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll kind of set the table for the matchup. Coming up at 12 noon, of course, Coach Brian Kelly will be at Football Operations to give us the very latest and what his team's planning to do this week as they travel on the road, trying to stay unbeaten in SEC play. We'll talk about LSU and Ole Miss right after this.
In Louisiana, we love our LSU Tigers. When the band strikes up those 4 iconic notes, the fans go wild. At Louisiana Blue, we're Tiger fans too. That's why we've teamed up with LSU Athletics to bring you the compassion of the cross and security of the shield, so you're free to wear your stripes and roar. Live Louisiana. We've got you. Louisiana Blue, Louisiana True.
Proud partner of LSU Athletics.
There was a time when a person's word was enough, a time when a handshake meant something, and integrity really mattered. For over 70 years, the values of Farm Bureau Insurance have been rooted in hard work, faith, and family. In that time, we've seen the world change in many ways. What hasn't wavered is Farm Bureau Insurance's commitment to protect our customers' way of life and serve the communities in which they live when they need us most. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at lafarmbureau.com.
Every Tiger knows it's not just about where you are, it's about how you play the game. At LSU Online, we bring that same grit and greatness to your education. Whether you're watching from Baton Rouge or beyond, you can earn your degree on your time from anywhere. Flexible, online, built for Tiger Nation. Visit online.lsu.edu and win where you are.
Trust isn't given. It's earned by showing up, leading the way, and performing at your best when it matters most. Our Lady of the Lake sports medicine experts know what it takes to improve performance and build champions at every level. That's why LSU chose Our Lady of the Lake as its championship health partner, trusting Louisiana's best medical team to care for our state's best athletes. From championship athletes to everyday champions, trusted care starts here. Visit OLOLRMC.com/LSU. Coming up, Coach Kelly addresses the media on this week's preparation. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. Here again are Gordy and Chris.
Back here inside the Capital One studio, we're about 11 minutes or so away from Coach Brian Kelly joining us from football operations, addressing the assembled media, talk about the win over Southeastern to move to 4-0, and probably the majority of the conversation going to come down to the matchup this Saturday in Oxford. LSU coming in this week ranked number 4 according to the AP. They moved down a spot, and Ole Miss, after the win over Tulane at home, will be coming in also undefeated. Michael Bonnet had a great nugget earlier today, and this will be the first time that Ole Miss and LSU, again playing a little earlier in the season, but first time they've been undefeated and untied going into this matchup, going back to 1959, Gordy. And in fact, I went over and checked with Michael this morning. It's the first time that both teams have been undefeated going into a matchup since 1962. So it's, again, one of those classic SEC rivalries. And it's going to be a huge game with a 2:30 kickoff there from Vaught Hemingway. Obviously, Lane Kiffin, you start talking offense, and they put points on the board, no surprise. They're off to a 4-0 start. They handled Georgia State rather easily at home, putting up a boatload of points. This past week, as we said, got a win at home over Tulane, 45-10. But really, for our argument or debate at this moment, Gordy, I want to look at the two SEC games now. They are 2-0. They got a win over Kentucky, which had been a problem for them over the last couple of years. 30-23, they get by the Wildcats. And then a score fest with Arkansas, 41-35. So I guess Coach Kiffin would probably agree that the offense a little ahead of the defense, at least early on in the year.
No question. And look, they played their most complete game of the year against Tulane, Chris, and they got a great defensive effort out of their group against the Green Wave. Offensively, they were hitting on all cylinders, so everything clicked in that ball game. But going back to the shootouts, what jumped out at me was this is a team that, like LSU, had a lot of kids come in the transfer portal, and they're just starting to gel. Right, they're starting to gel. Defensively, there's been a bunch of missed assignments, and that, I think, explains that. But offensively, Ole Miss has got themselves a quarterback controversy. Now, I don't know how Coach Kiffin is going to handle it, but Austin Simmons was a guy we heard about all offseason. Tremendous talent. Left-hander, and it was, of course, Jackson Dart's backup, and they were really excited about him. But late in the transfer portal, he went and got a Division III quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss from Ferris State, and he played last week against Arkansas. He started against Tulane, and he has been dynamic. So not sure of Simmons' injury, who went down a little bit in the Arkansas game. What is his status? But there's been a lot of discussion about both guys this weekend, and Ole Miss following the Tulane win.
Well, I don't want to go out on a limb here and say Lane Kiffin sometimes likes to play a little gamesmanship, but I do know during the game, watching most of that Tulane game, that Simmons would be, between series, he would be warming up, and everybody kept thinking, okay, is he going to go in now? Which he did go in the week before when he didn't feel, 100%. So, again, I don't know if you're preparing for both. I don't know that if Simmons is 100% and cleared, ready to go, feels 100%, that he's the guy, and then we may see Chambliss in a switch-up. You mentioned it, the preparation last week for two quarterbacks you knew about. I guess you kind of got to do the same thing if you're Coach Baker and company this week, depending on who's going to be behind center. Now, Lane's press conference, I think, just got underway up in Oxford maybe 5-7 minutes ago, so maybe he's going to declare who's going to start, but you got to be prepared for both.
Like, there's no way that he declares. We know the way that Lane does, and nobody scripts a better first couple series in college football better than Lane Kiffin. I mean, he comes up, he's going to run that NASCAR offense. They're going to go quick, and he's usually got the first 15 to 20 plays scripted, and it's really creative and real well thought out. Look, I think what Trinidad Chambliss brings to the table, it's two things. He's a little bit quicker than Simmons, not that Simmons isn't capable of running the football. And surprisingly, he's been really accurate throwing the football. When you look at thus far, he's thrown at a 67.7 percentage clip, 42 of 62, 4 touchdowns, 186.4 efficiency. That's remarkable for a kid that's making a step up in competition. And for LSU, what jumped out at me against Tulane, he threw 3 long balls, in-man coverage, vertical routes, and dropped them right in there. And so he's played really, really well. I'd be surprised if it wasn't Chambliss that was starting in this game.
Defensively, as we said, they gave up 23 points to the Wildcats. They gave up 35 to this Arkansas Razorback team. Pete Golden, in his 3rd year as defensive coordinator, of course, made a name for himself at Alabama. You talk about gelling with the transfer portal. I know last year they lost a number of guys on that defensive side. But what do you see defensively? I mean, it's typically you know what Golden wants to do, but does he have the horses to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's $1 million question. I think they got a break in the sense that Tulane, with their new quarterback, Jake Retzlaff, that came from BYU, is kind of a spread the run type of team. They're not elite throwing the football. Arkansas, a couple weeks ago, elite throwing the football with Bobby Petrino calling plays. I mean, they're fantastic, and Taylon Green's had a whale of a season for the Razorbacks. He is, I think, trying to push this group together. They're not as talented as they were a year ago. That was one of the best Ole Miss defenses, I think, in the last 10 or 20 years. And they hit the portal really hard. I think they're trying to put it together, and they're going to have a test on their hands trying to defend all these LSU receivers.
Yeah, Jaden Yates named SEC Defensive Player of the Week for his performance against Tulane. They also have a pretty good linebacker that they liken to kind of the disruptor in the offensive backfield.
Yeah, Mr. Perkins is fantastic. I call him he reminds me so much of Harold Perkins Jr. Because he's athletic, and you see him out there, Sonatarine Perkins. Right, Chris? Yep. I'll get that right by game time. But he is electric. He's an edge rusher. He can play in space. But as he's got older in his career, this is year number 3 for Perkins as an Ole Miss Rebel. He's a guy that they're on 3rd down, they're going to put on the edge, and he's going to rush a passer. He is dynamic and very quick.
Now, I go back to everything working for LSU. They got the big score early, got the big lead, and then we were able to see a lot of reserves get some meaningful playing time. Obviously, I think the headline probably was Michael Van Buren, who was excellent. I mean, he and Garrett combined for about 81% completion. So he didn't have a drop-off in completions in the passing game. But after the game, we learned that Caden Durham, again, came out of the game, had a little injury. It sounded like, again, good news, wasn't as bad as maybe initially anticipated. I'm sure that's going to be asked. We'll find out a little bit more. But you certainly want to have all hands on deck when you go back into the SEC. No question. And Caden Durham got hurt late in the second quarter, and it was at the point that LSU was making that sort of separation. I really didn't find out about it till after the football game because they ran with Johnson, and Johnson was running so well, and Coach talked about it. Fortunately, the MRI that they took yesterday reportedly was negative, and so it's not a high ankle sprain. He'll be day-to-day, and we'll learn a little bit later in the week his status for this game. Well, we always talk about, the venues that LSU travels to, and, of course, it's great that the home venue here at Tiger Stadium is second to none, but it does get rowdy. Mm-hmm. You and I talk about it all the time, for maybe not the number of seats, it still gets loud between the crowd and between their speakers on 11 or 12. Yes. It's a loud atmosphere at Vaught Hemingway. They did a great job of locking the Vaught down with probably one of the best sound systems in college football, because it is like a nightclub in there. Fortunately for LSU, they're not playing at night. And I laughed when Lane Kiffin, he mentioned that in his post-game press conference. He said, of course, the SEC is going to make us play in day, and last year we played them at night. We'll probably play at Georgia at night, so he's not excited the game's at day. Regardless, it's a rivalry game. It's going to be loud. That's a tough place to play because the fans are right on top of you, literally. They do a good job over there. Now, obviously, you play the game. You know what it's like, and I know you look back at last week's win, 56-10. That's the way that score is supposed to look. Right. But based on the 3 previous weeks, what is the upside for LSU coming out of the win Saturday, going right back into SEC play and taking on the 13th-ranked Rebels? How does that help them, what happened on Saturday? I think the upside, hopefully, is that this offense takes the confidence after performing that well against Southeastern. He realized it's Southeastern, but Garrett Nussmeier threw the ball, right? He threw the ball much better.
Several wide receivers got in the game. Several of your backup targets like Johnson and Barry, some second-line players got some valuable reps. Hopefully you can take that confidence on the road and perform against, again, a rebuilt Ole Miss defense. I know they were great against Tulane. Tulane doesn't throw the ball quite as well as LSU.
Do you think Pete Golden looks back, and obviously he does, Clemson game, Florida game, even the Louisiana Tech game, a 3-3-5 defense, where, as we said, most of the night they were saying, we think we can contain the run, and we're going to put guys back to try to stop these passing lanes. Do you think there'll be any difference for Golden?
No.
Where you probably see a lot of 4-man rush and a lot of 5 and 6 in coverage?
Absolutely. Pete is really known for disguising things up front very well, so I think there'll be a lot of simulated pressures. But he's going to do a good job of trying to confuse Garrett a little bit. He'll play a lot of too high, and much like Florida, he'll mix it up underneath. He'll play some man, he'll play some zone, and hope that the front four can put a little bit of pressure on Garrett, and they can maybe trick him and catch him trying to identify something that he thinks is man. It might be zone.
Well, looking forward to it. Again, 2:30 Central Time, the ABC game. It'll be LSU and Ole Miss. And now we go to football ops. Here's head coach Brian Kelly.
What else? There's something else going on. I can't think. Oh, the baseball playoffs, right? Tons of things. Oh, and we're playing Ole Miss. Yeah, that's pretty big. All that other stuff is just to make sure you guys were awake. Yeah, obviously, just a quick recap from this weekend. I was really pleased with the preparation of our football team. Going into a week where, you're off from the SEC. The things that are really important are how you prepare and playing to a standard. And I thought, outside the first 3 and out, our offense was what it should be, and that was extremely efficient. I think we had 5 consecutive touchdowns leading into the second half. Our defense gave up, I think, 31 yards. So, what you're looking for is a dominating performance in the first half, and we certainly got that. So, really pleased with the way our guys handled the game, the way they prepared, and then their performance certainly showed that. Now we're into the SEC for, a couple of months. And so each and every week is a challenge. We know the opposition each week will certainly test us. But now you lean on, your foundational principles. You lean on, what your process is and how you go to work every day, your habits, the way you prepare. And at times you're going to have to be leaning on guys that haven't started. This tests your depth within your program. It tests your roster. And so all those things will come into play as we move into, the next couple of months, So Ole Miss, certainly a rivalry game, playing for the Magnolia Trophy, the Bowl Trophy. I think everybody knows this is a game that goes way back, and certainly the last couple of years it was decided on the last plays of the game. Ole Miss is an outstanding football team, well coached. Lane does a great job, and again, they have an established winning culture and certainly an offense that has again put up incredible numbers offensively, and they do it with 2 quarterbacks now, which is very difficult to do, but they've managed it quite well with Simmons and Chambliss. Both of them have been extremely effective and efficient through their first couple of games, throwing and running. So you've got a dual threat situation. I think Lacey is one of the best backs in the league. Harrison, an outstanding wide receiver. They've got some veteran offensive linemen. And so they're so, obviously efficient at what they do and how they do it. This is what they do. And it's very similar week in and week out. And certainly the balance that they have in running and throwing the football. Defensively, Harris, Daughtery at linebacker, and Perkins at the edge. They've got an inside presence. They've got an outside presence. And they certainly have it at the linebacker who kind of, makes things happen for them. So, again, a great challenge for us, one that we're looking forward to. We got to go on the road. Anytime you go on the road in the SEC, it's a great challenge, and we recognize that going into this week. So that will open up the questions.
Brian, just to get started, updates on West Weeks, Caden Durham, Gabe Relaford, and Trades Green. What is their status now heading into the week?
West Weeks ran yesterday. I think we got him at 90%, so I would say that he is probable for this game leading into it. Trades will play. He was pretty good in pregame, and then we felt like we could hold him back for another week. Caden Durham will be a day-to-day situation. He was better than we had first thought. Doesn't show the signs of a high ankle, so he's anxious to give it a shot and play. But we'll monitor him, throughout the week. Gabe Relaford has a subluxation of his shoulder, so he is out this week, and then we will determine whether surgery is necessary or he can play with it. We certainly want to respect the fact that in this situation, a defensive lineman, you want to make sure he's healthy and pass rush. And if he can't compete at the level he needs to, then we'll look at the options that are in front of us, and surgery could be an option. I think that covers everybody.
Hey, Coach. The last time you went to Oxford, you scored 49, didn't win the game. I think you referenced that as a low point for you guys defensively. How much better do you feel this time around with this defense going there?
I think we've talked about, even the Clemson game, right, Jacques? You feel better about those games because you're taking a defense that can stand up against the environment, going on the road and all those things. And we're a much more cohesive group. The roster's better. The players are better. Those were good, tough kids that played hard for us, but, we're a little short in some areas. So we bring a defense with us. Now we'll have to match, obviously, I don't know about all the points, but we got to score too. Like we talked about last week. I mean, we can't, be scoring a touchdown or 10 points. That's not going to cut it in the SEC. So continue to play at the level that we have defensively, and then bring your offense up to the level that it needs to be to win games in the SEC.
Brian, it kind of appeared that DJ Chester would become sort of your sixth man, would go anywhere on the offensive line. Without him for the first half, Where does that leave you if you do need a backup?
Yeah, I mean, it's one that we have to adjust to this week. Braden Augustus went in there and did a solid job for us as the backup center. He'll be called on to do that again. Karius Kern now steps into that rotating tackle position for us. We have enough depth inside with Paul and Cohen Eccles, and then Ori Williams got a lot of play and did some really good things. So we just have to switch it up in the first half if we, in fact, have to go to a number two.
Coach over here, I know you just referenced it, but playing two different quarterbacks potentially with Ole Miss and what they have. I know y'all just played two different quarterbacks in Southeast. Coach Selfley, that's what he wants to do. So how does that really help the team prepare, especially defensively, knowing that you're playing as potentially two quarterbacks this weekend?
Yeah, I think it was, in some instances, it would be like Texas A&M last year. Those are two different quarterbacks. One was a pro-style quarterback, and one was certainly a dual threat that could run zone reads, do things of that nature. And it changes you dramatically. This week, both these quarterbacks are similar. And now they have different skill sets in terms of but they can run the same offense with both of these players. So I'm not saying it's easier. It's hard, right? You've got two really good players, but it's not as that one is a pro-style quarterback and is not going to run, and the other one is simply a dual threat. They're both very similar.
Brian, I got two on Ole Miss if I can. How much and how effective does Ole Miss use tempo to their advantage? And then a lot of people consider Lane to be a great in-game play caller. What in your opinion, constitutes being a great in-game play caller?
Yeah, their tempo is the best in the league. So, you have to get lined up. And in some instances, it keeps you from doing too much. You got to get your cleats in the ground. You've got to be fundamentally sound. And I think, Lane does a great job adapting to what's going on in the game itself, right? And I think more than anything else is that, you can plan for things to happen, right? But then you have to be able to prepare what's the next step. And he's obviously very experienced at what he does, and during the game he can adjust as he sees that he needs to.
Coach, with DJ Chester starting the second half at right tackle, what do you sort of see in him as a potential tackle option for you guys, even if he's going to miss the first half of the next game? And what does Weston Davis sort of need to improve on in order to fortify his spot a little more?
Yeah, I don't. That position's not up for grabs. Weston Davis has done a really good job. He needed a break. We needed to get him back to where he needs to be as one of the 5 guys working together. So it was a good learning experience for him. But more importantly, we wanted to get DJ some more tackle reps. As you know, he's gotten plenty of center reps. He started 13 games for us last year. So this was more of an opportunity to get him in the game and get some more tackle reps because, as referenced earlier, he's our first guy in at any one of those 5 positions.
Coach, how do you view your running back room going into this game with Caden being nicked and Jawan? Has he earned more touches with the way he's playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a great job. I think Caden, certainly will be in the mix provided he's healthy, and early indications are that, he's going to be able to play. We'll see how it goes during the week. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but, we got a good report on him yesterday, and then this morning when we moved them around, it was positive. So you'll have both those guys, and I thought Caleb Jackson probably had his best game of the year in terms of seeing things, hitting them, playing physical, catching the ball out of the backfield. He was outstanding on the times that we had some 2-back runs in there leading as well. So I still think we have those 3, and then, we keep bringing Harlem along as he continues to grow within the offense. So I don't think we go into the game, shorthanded in any respect.
I guess just following up on Cobble's question a couple minutes ago, just the Kiffin versus Blake Baker. These are obviously 2 very highly regarded offensive and defensive minds. Just as a football coach, fan of football, just what do you like about just the opportunity those 2 get to kind of mix and match each other?
I think we're at the point that we know each other very well. I mean, both teams, for me, this is, certainly the 4th time we've played against each other. Blake's done it when he's at Missouri too. So there's no tricks really. It's not like, I never saw that coming. I think you have, when you get down to it, it's the team that really is executing at the highest level and doing the little things the right way. They're going to get theirs. There's no question. That's a great offense. But I think that's played a little bit too much because they know each other so well and they know what to expect, and both of them on offense and defense know how to make the appropriate adjustments.
Last week you talked about wanting your offense to play a little looser and freer. I guess Garrett echoed those sentiments in the postgame, saying he felt like that was the case. Did you see that on film? What did you like about your team in that instance and that they were able to just get out there and play?
Yeah, I mean, I think – it's kind of going back to what I said earlier is that I want our teams not to be so scripted. And I thought we got a little scripted offensively and, to the point where, it was so planned out and then the game starts. And then you got to adapt and adjust. And so I think as you talk about the offensive structure, I think it's continually find ways to run the ball and have a running game. And then let Garrett Nussmeier do what he does, and he loves to throw the football down the field. So I think, being a little bit more aggressive on 4th down, we had the 3 4th down situations. I think it just, from my perspective and talking to our players, they just felt better about how we attack things, and we'll have to continue to do that moving forward.
Coach, Patrick Payton has affected the game, it feels like, more than just what shows up in the stat sheet, obviously with the injured Relaford. You just talk about what he's provided through the first, month of the season and what you like about him?
It's a great question. We were just talking about it, his unselfishness. He's not out there looking for sacks. He's out there, playing the defense. And that's going to serve him well down the road when NFL teams start to really look at his effectiveness. You come here and you're like, well, I want to, make sacks and get the, the bling plays. He's been really effective as being 1/11th of that defense. We've been really good because those guys, not just him, but Jack, and certainly Jamari, who had a really good game Saturday, they have done their jobs and not gone outside the lines to try to get individual statistics, and really proud of all of them. Well, again, I think, you recruit somebody and you see them on film and you see the things that you really like about them. I'm not surprised after getting the chance to know him since he's been here that he's a guy that's going to do the things for your team first and foremost. And you don't know that till you get a chance to know him. But, I thought we did a really good job of, vetting the players that we brought in out. And all he really wanted when we recruited him was to play for a championship.
Brian, just how do you feel about the fact that LSU is not going to play Alabama on an annual basis? It's been reported that it'll be Arkansas as the third opponent. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm fine with the way it's set up because within 4 years you're going to play them home and away. So, yeah, you might not get them every year, but you're going to get them enough where it continues to take the big game approach to playing Alabama. So the way the schedule's set up, I feel really good about what it looks like and all the teams that we're going to get a chance to play in the SEC.
Coach, I want to ask you about a local kid, Dylan Carpenter, gets in the game, gets a quarterback sack, has been on the team for 3 years. How do you feel about, getting rewarded for sticking around? And were there any other guys in the game who did something like that?
Yeah, I think that, here's a guy that has waited for his opportunity. We went into the portal and took some guys, and he just kept working hard every day. And so it's great to see those kind of stories with a kid from the state that had some success on Saturday, and he played well. I think he's built trust with our defensive staff and everybody, including myself, that we can put him in the game, and he's going to be a good, solid player for us. I think if you look across the board, you have like a number of guys that have had to be selfless. The first guy that comes to mind is Chris Hilton. He goes out there and plays his tail off. He's blocking. He's doing all the things. He could easily say, what about mine? Why am I not getting mine? And certainly he wants the ball. He's a competitor. And if he didn't want the ball, I'd be worried about that. But he does. But he's a teammate first, and that's why he's a leader of our football team. He would be another great example.
Brian, obviously your offensive personnel is much different now than what it was the last time you played in Oxford. So is there value in, quote unquote, slowing the game down when you guys have the ball offensively to sort of counteract what Ole Miss likes to do with their offense?
No, I don't think so. I think we're built a lot like we were last year. I mean, we're developing the continuity within the offensive line, but we've got weapons on the outside. The running backs are same. I think the two tight end situation that we have is, obviously equal in some respects to last year. So I think we're very similar to last year in that sense. We just can't turn the ball over, and we can't have the 3 and outs that we've had. We've got to maintain possession of the football. And I think defensively, I think they know what to expect. It's going to be up-tempo. We're going to have to defend against big plays, and we're going to have to get off the field on third down.
Blake and Corey get a lot of love, obviously, but what about the job Jake has done with that safeties room, and what are your expectations for that group in this game, which could be huge?
Yeah, Jake has done a great job since he's been here. Again, we're getting more experienced and veteran players on the field, and from a coaching standpoint, let's not overrate this. We've got better players, and those kids played hard for us last year, but these are really good players. And so Blake's a better defensive coordinator. Kevin Peoples is a better edge coach. We're all better. I'm a better coach because we haven't lost the game. All of these things have to do with your players ultimately are playing the game. Now we're gonna have a process for them, and we're gonna coach them and teach them. We're tackling so much better. And obviously that's something that we work on. So I don't want to say it's all the players and the coaches have nothing to do with it, but you start there, and then you have an expectation to put those kids in a good position.
A lot has kind of already been reported, and you've talked a lot about sort of the effort that went into getting a lot of these defensive players over the past year. But I guess maybe at what point did y'all know that you'd be able to kind of sign these kind of defensive players that you did? And I don't know, is there anything else that kind of went into it that you maybe haven't talked about before?
Well, I mean, you need resources, and our fan base rallied. We had really good support that allowed us to be competitive in what is now an NIL marketplace, if you will. So you need the resources to be able to go out to do that. We built a front office that identified the right talent and was effective in doing so. Then we closed the deal with the ability to have the resources necessary to attract that caliber player. So, it's a number of things. It's having a fan base, a donor base. It's having a front office. It's and then creating an environment, here at LSU and using the brand of LSU and what it can do. I think all of those things, Wilson, came together as one to get to where we are with this roster.
Coach, with Gabe Relaford out, how do you guys sort of piece together that fourth edge rusher spot to sort of rotate in? Is it going to be a bunch of different guys? Is there a guy that you kind of want to tab for that spot? I was just sort of curious how you guys approach that now.
Yeah, we talked about Dylan. Dylan played quite a bit. We're excited about Dylan. We'll take a look at, CJ and Collage. They're both ready to play for us as well. We'll take a look at Damian Shanklin. We think we have some really good options for that fourth position. We'll miss Gabe this week, certainly, until we decide what his fate is moving forward relative to the shoulder. But we feel really good that we're going to be able to find that fourth guy through all the guys that I just mentioned.
Would you mind just elaborating a bit on Carius Kern, what you noticed when he showed up in the spring to fall camp, then really getting his first extended action on Saturday?
He's an exceptional physical specimen, but we have to be able to turn that into a technically sound offensive lineman, and he's made really good progress. I think we all know that I'm willing to play freshman at that position. We did it in 2022. It's just really difficult, when you're asking somebody to go in and play a position at this level for the first time. There's going to be a learning curve. I like what he's doing. I like the maturity that he's showing and the consistency. And I still think you're going to see him playing in some capacity, and he's got to be prepared to do so.
Any adjustments or challenges with the 230 kick?
No, but it is our first 230 kick in quite some time. I don't know when the last time we played. I can't remember. See, there you go. All right, that's good for me. I didn't remember something. Nothing major. I think that it's not an easy trip, and I told our team that last week, actually. We were talking about the schedule moving forward. You get to Tupelo, and then you're still an hour bus ride. So you got to handle it. You got to mentally lock in and handle that you've got a road trip, and don't be distracted by it. It is what it is. And get your mind right about that. And, be prepared. But I don't think the 2:30 start is really something that's out of our comfort zone. We practice every time right around that 2:30 time. No, I don't think we're going to do that this year. Yeah, that's a one-time deal.
Just looking at Garrett after the game, I mean, he's 100%. He's making all the throws he's always been able to make, scrambling, all that. You feel?
Well, you saw him play versus the other teams, and you saw him that night, and I think you could see a difference in what he was doing. He was much more confident throwing the football. I think, he saw opportunities to run. He took it. I thought his escape out of the pocket where he threw the touchdown pass was outstanding. Those are the things that we're looking for from him. And quite frankly, given him the opportunity to push the ball down the field. He's highly accurate in throwing the ball down the field. So, there's a couple things we can clean up, with him, and I think that's good that there's a couple and he can continue to play better. But it's good to see him back to where he had been prior to the year, and I know he's feeling really comfortable right now.
Coach, for DJ Pickett, he's allowed just 3 receptions all season. What did he sort of need to learn to take that next step and really earn that, increased playing time as the season has sort of gone along?
Yeah, I don't have the rep breakdown, but it was pretty close on Saturday. They were somewhere in that 34, 36 range, and all of them were pretty close. I think you've got, right now we're rolling in with 3, and those 3 guys are pretty talented. And so I think you'll see that continue in terms of his reps. And just more game experience, a couple of times where he was in a position he's got to wrap up and make a tackle, but he's an outstanding player. I mean, we're nitpicking. I mean, here's a true freshman coming in, and he can play at the highest level.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Coach Brian Kelly with this week's Brian Kelly press conference as LSU gets ready to get back to SEC play, traveling to Oxford to take on Ole Miss. Again, 2:30 kick time from Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. We'll take a final timeout. We come back, we'll wrap it up on the Brian Kelly press conference.
All right. It's a beautiful day for football here at the stadium, and we're just about ready for kickoff. Score 0-0. And suddenly, I'm in the mood for a Coke Zero Sugar. Real Coke taste, zero sugar. Now that's a winning combo. Yeah, crisp, refreshing. That hits the spot. When it comes to great taste, Coke Zero Sugar's always on the scoreboard. Coke Zero Sugar. Real Coke taste, zero sugar.
There was a time when a person's word was enough. A time when a handshake meant something, and integrity really mattered. For over 70 years, the values of Farm Bureau Insurance have been rooted in hard work, faith, and family. In that time, we've seen the world change in many ways. What hasn't wavered is Farm Bureau Insurance's commitment to protect our customers' way of life and serve the communities in which they live when they need us most. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at lafarmbureau.com.
Hey, wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest.
Uh-oh.
Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
LSU Tiger fans are gearing up with real Tigers apparel and merchandise from the official online store at lsushop.net. Get jerseys, sideline gear, polos, t-shirts, hats, official team merchandise from Nike, accessories, and much more. Over 3,600 products, all shipped right to your door. Head to the place real Tiger fans go for the selection only real Tiger fans get at lsushop.net.
That's a wrap on this week's Brian Kelly press conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. For last-minute news and notes, once again, here is Chris Blair.
Coming up on Thursday, once again, it will be the Brian Kelly Show, live from TJ Ribs. All gets started at 7 o'clock. After the Tigers pretty much get their week of practice together, we'll have Coach to give us the very latest on the Tigers as they get set to head to Oxford, Mississippi. Tigers will take on Ole Miss again with a 2:30 kickoff. We'll have coverage beginning on Saturday at 12:30. Started up with LSU Game Day, presented by the original Louisiana Hot Sauce. It'll be Marlon Favorite, Brandon Taylor, Hunt Palmer, and then handed off to Gordy Rush, Jacob Hester, and myself from Vaught-Hemingway Stadium again with kickoff at 2:30. So that'll wrap things up for us again this week. Glad you could join us. Thanks to Gordy Rush. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. In fact, no press conference this coming Monday. So we'll be back in 2 weeks right here on the Brian Kelly Press Conference.
This has been the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. For the very latest on LSU Fighting Tiger football, follow the Tigers on social at LSU Football and at LSUsports.net.